Hi, my name is Audrey Goffnett, and today I am going to be presenting my capstone presentation on the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Throughout this project, we're going to be discussing my thesis statement, background on the Edmund Fitzgerald, the last voyage, theories behind the sinking that we might know, the impact of the wreck, and conclusion. My thesis statement was, the theories of the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald are important because they help us understand the dangers of Great Lakes shipping and take better precautions. We're going to first start about talking about the background. So the story of the sinking of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald is one of the most known shipwreck stories in the Great Lakes, and there are about 6,000 other wrecks that have occurred on the Great Lakes. And it's one of the most tragic and mysterious shipping disasters that occurred on the Great Lakes. The Great Lakes shipping industry was huge in the 1970s. There were a lot of different ships that traveled on the Great Lakes because it was like an easy passageway in North America. The lakes made transportation of materials easier to different parts of North America, and the Edmund Fitzgerald was very big compared to other ships that were produced during this time. It hauled lots of cargo, and it allowed for a shipping trip to be done more effectively. And also, the Edmund Fitzgerald was very popular in the Great Lakes, and by 1975 it had made around 750 round trips across the Great Lakes. It even had a few nicknames, which I thought was pretty cool. It was also known as the Queen of the Lakes, the Mighty Fitz, and the Big Fitz. The last voyage. So, when they left the docks in Wisconsin on November 10th, 1975. When they left the docks, the sky was clear and there were no signs of any storm. But as early on in their journey, there was a report from the National Weather Service that stated that the winds were supposed to pick up and go from 29 to 43 miles per hour during the night, which is very fast, and you don't really want that for a shipping trip. And during this whole Witch of November is what they called the storm, the Fitzgerald was in contact with another ship called the Arthur M. Anderson, and they were in contact the whole night, which I thought was really cool. And even during the final minutes of the journey that they had before it wrecked, the Fitzgerald spoke to the Arthur M. Anderson, stating that they were holding their own, and that was the last thing that the Fitzgerald had said, or that Captain McSorley had said and communicated to anybody that night. So Captain McSorley obviously wasn't able to steer out of the storm, and now the Fitzgerald lies at the bottom of Lake Superior in two pieces with debris in between the middle. There are many theories behind the sinking of the Fitzgerald. So the Fitzgerald was actually inspected by the Coast Guard 10 days before they left the docks in Wisconsin, and it was supposed to be their last trip before it was put away for winter. So they found out that there was damage to 4 different hatch coverings, but because it was supposed to be their last trip before winter, they just decided to wait until it was docked for the winter so that they could just repair it after it was docked. And some believe that this actually had a big part to do with the wreck, that the previous damages to the ship could have also made the wreck happen. I'd say the most probable theory is the Witch of November, which was the big storm that happened on the night of November 10th, 1975. I mean, even though the captain was very trained and he knew his way around the Great Lakes and had sailed in that many different times, there's no way that he could have saved his ship or the crew in it, especially with the waves being that high and the winds being that high. The things we know, so it's important to consider all theories, but we don't actually know everything that went down that night. So I have a quote from Jacqueline Justice, and she states, "No witnesses survived to actually describe this dramatic visual representation of the ship's sinking and destruction. These details were built from the best guesses of those who have studied the condition of the wreckage as it lies on the floor of the Lake Superior. I think that's important to consider, though, because we don't actually know what happened to the ship. Nobody actually survived to tell the exact story of what happened that night. But we can rely on other people who've studied, like, the lakes and the ship and its condition before it left the port, to kind of determine what is the most probable theory out there. I have another quote that says, "We know how it went down, what we don't know is why." I think it's important to consider that all these theories are just guesses. We don't actually know what happened. So the impact of the wreck. The wreck of the Fitzgerald had a strong impact on Michigan. The Mariners Church of Detroit holds a ceremony every year to commemorate the lives lost in the wreck. In this ceremony, they ring a bell for every life lost. So this is kind of cool because the bell that's featured in this picture is the bell that they got from the wreck of the Fitzgerald. It was on the Fitzgerald. And so the Mariners Church of Detroit rings a bell for every life lost that was lost on the Fitzgerald, which I just think is really significant. And also Gordon Lightfoot even wrote a song that shares the story of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I'm sure all of us growing up in Michigan have probably heard this song. My dad was more than happy to play it for me a million times as I was doing this project. Conclusion. While we may never learn what exactly caused the great ship to sink, the theories have all allowed ships sailing on the Great Lakes to learn of many different challenges that they could face. Until we learn more concrete evidence, we can only create well-versed theories. Now we're going to go to my personal takeaways. So throughout this project, I learned a lot about the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, like more than I'd ever heard before. I didn't actually realize how many different theories there were on the sinking until I conducted my research. I also didn't realize how many different, shipping disasters there were on the Great Lakes until I started researching things like that. And I just think it's really significant that this one stood out the most among all of the wrecks, among all of, the 6,000 other recorded wrecks. I'd say my favorite part of the project was the paper, just because I like writing papers, but I really enjoyed putting all of my research together and forming a thesis. So that is the end of my project. Thank you so much for listening, and here is my works cited. Thank you.